Hey, Rebecca, how's it going?
Hey, Cree.
How are you?
Good.
Good, good. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. I see some folks trickling in here. You guys know the drill. Just waiting for a couple of folks to come in. We're waiting for 2 people here. And just as a reminder, so we have sessions going on right now. We also have 25 companies that are actively hiring. So be sure after the sessions, before the panel sessions, head over to those booths and check out those companies. There are remote positions available. There are positions all over Michigan. So definitely be sure to take advantage of that section there. All right, here, let me just put out a quick message to my other speakers here and make sure they are good to go. All right, everyone. So we are going to, oh, Miriam, I'm glad you were able to get into the consulting session. So yes, all of our sessions are recorded, so we will be able to get these out to everyone after the event. Thank you for asking. Great question. So how I've been starting every panel while we wait for speakers, if you guys could start dropping some intros in the chat. So this is the entrepreneurship panel session where we're going to be talking about all things entrepreneurship. So start dropping some questions that you have. We have some really diverse speakers here today. We have someone who's plant touching, we have someone from tech, and we also have someone from investment. So we'll be talking about entrepreneurship from all different angles. So with that being said, tell us where you're from, what you're interested in, and what questions you have. Yeah, and Matthew Van de Streek, I see you responded to my message here. So Flourish is over in Grand Rapids. I believe they have a hiring booth. They're one of their HR managers is in that booth. So after this session, definitely head over and chat with them there because they are actively hiring. Hey there, Otha. How's it going?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we are just waiting for a couple of minutes. We're waiting for one more person. Celia from Poseidon Partners will be here shortly. Oh, she just texted me. She says her internet is being a little bit funky, so she will join as soon as she is able.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We will get started here shortly. Again, if new folks have trickled in, we have panel sessions going on right now. We have 3 more panels, I believe, will be going on until 4. We also have hiring companies that are actively hiring in virtual booths. So after this session, definitely head over there and check them out. But let's go ahead and get started. So we are here with the entrepreneurship panel. I love that we have so many diverse speakers on this panel today. I'm going to start off with just reminding you who I am again. I'm Cree Robinson. I'm the co-founder of touCanna, which is a software company, an operational management software for dispensaries. touCanna is one of the co-organizers for this event along with Vangst. Super excited to have Rebecca and Otha here. So Rebecca, we'll start off with you. If you could tell us who you are, where you are located currently, and what you do.
Yes. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Collette. I'm based in Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. I lead a Detroit-based cultivation and processing brand named Collexium. Medical right now because there's some things going on in the D, but adult use soon. But we do have some adult use products available out there in the Metro Detroit area. I also lead our community-based nonprofit where we do a lot of beautiful things in the Detroit community. And I also founded a social equity incubator, which I'm so proud of, called the Detroit Cannabis Project.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And yeah, I'm gonna definitely boost her up. She does so much for the cannabis industry, but she doesn't talk about herself a lot. So I'm here for that. So thank you, Rebecca. So happy to have you here. I had the honor to be a part of the Detroit Cannabis Project, such an amazing and necessary program for Detroiters wanting to get into this space. So thank you for all that you do, Rebecca. And Otha, tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here today. So Otha Smith, I am the CEO and founder of touCanna, based outside of Washington, D.C. and Maryland. So got the East Coast in the house representing. But with touCanna is a mobile app that we designed specifically to help cannabis and CBD consumers keep track of the products they purchase, rate the effectiveness of those products, and then they have the ability to share those reviews anonymously with other people. Since cannabis and CBD is such a journey that people do alone until they find the right product that works best for them, we wanted to create an app that gives them the ability to really dial in and understand which products, but more so than that, which terpenes and cannabinoids are shown to be the most beneficial to their health. And so no better way to do that than through documentation. And so we created an app that does just that.
Awesome. And yes, and the touCanna app is really blowing up the industry because it's something that's so necessary. I think especially as we transition from folks in what we call the legacy market, and these are folks that have been a part of the industry before it was legal. Transitioning from those folks to folks who know nothing about cannabis and need a place to understand which products work best for them. So touCanna is the perfect app to do that. And I'll let Otha talk a little bit more about the app throughout this panel, but he's really doing big things and really shaking up the industry with that app.
Appreciate you.
Yes. So let's jump into some questions here. So if you guys could tell me a little bit about when it comes to your entrepreneurship journey, we have two different sides of things here. We have Rebecca, who's plant touching, and then we have Otha, who's on the ancillary side. So Rebecca, could you tell me why you decided to start the type of business that you did?
Girl, really a journey. So I was not touching the plant. I encourage everybody. A lot of people always come to me and say, how can I get into the cannabis industry? And they immediately think about the plant touching side. And as we all know, hey, nice for you to join us.
So sorry, you guys had some technical issues this morning.
It's all good.
All good.
It's all good. And as we all know, on the plant touching side, that takes time. It takes time for you to hear if you want a license. It takes time for you to buy a building and build it out. So I always encourage everybody, start on the non-plant touching side. You know, use a lot of your transferable skills from corporate to enter into the cannabis space. And if you feel that plant touching side is on your journey, then approach that once you have the appropriate cannabis experience and knowledge base. So that's what I did. I started in kind of consulting and advocacy. So not touching the plant. I didn't need a license or anything. And as I learned more about the gaps, and where I saw gaps, I saw opportunities. I started creating the brand Collexium alongside my co-founder because we saw nothing like it in the industry. But the only reason I was able to even see that need is because I was already in the industry, advocating, lobbying, being a consultant, doing all type of stuff. I think the best way to gain experience in cannabis is to be hands-on, however you can make that happen. And, you know, based on where you live, of course, however you can make that happen, start getting your experience. Don't wait for there to be licenses available. Don't wait for you to buy a building.
I love that, Rebecca, because what you said essentially is you being strategic. You wanted to get into the industry, you assessed the gaps, but you built up your experience first before you jumped in and tried to fill those gaps. I think that's really, really, really important. So thank you so much for that answer. And Otha, before we get to you, I just want to take a quick second to introduce Celia here. If you could tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're located.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, some tech issues this morning. I'm located in Denver, Colorado. I'm the director of operations for Poseidon in the industry. I used to working with on people that are starting up in the States. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. And Celia, we'll just hang with you for a second. I just posed the question to Rebecca and Otha. Why did you choose to start the type of business that you did, or why did you choose to get involved in the sector of the cannabis industry?
Yeah, I haven't founded anything. I'm with an amazing team of investing since 2013. I was at a different fund before that, also investing in cannabis, but the way sort of accidental, honestly. I have got my master's degree and sort of just happened to get a job at a cannabis tech company, which is what sort of opened the world up to me. And it has changed a lot. And that was 2016. So different space these days, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Celia. And speaking of cannabis tech, Otha with the amazing tetragram, tell us why you chose to start a cannabis tech company.
I was really out of my own personal need. I was involved in a very tragic car accident in 2003 that nearly took my life. So it resulted in a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. So once I got out of the hospital, I was prescribed opioids and went down that path for about 3 years and didn't want to live that life. And so cannabis had been something that I've utilized throughout college, throughout high school. So once I decided to cut out all the opioids, I put all my attention back into cannabis. And, I'll never forget the first time when Maryland legalized their medical program and I got my card and went to a dispensary. I was just blown away. I mean, I was a little bit overwhelmed by all these different options to choose from. For the legacy market, you just think of like a pipe, a bong, or a blunt, right? And so when we're talking about topicals and different oral solutions, I was just like, wow, this is fascinating. And so, being someone that has used cannabis for 15 plus years and having that experience, I knew that if I was having this experience, I could only imagine how traumatic the experience must be for someone who is new to cannabis. And so I just really threw myself into the industry. And one of the things that was always constant, regardless if I spoke to other dispensary staff, AKA bud tenders, medical professionals, just whoever was in the industry, was that you got to keep a journal. That's the only way you're going to be able to keep track of all these products that you try and determine which ones work best for you. So I took that approach and said, everything that we do today is on our phones, right? So this should be something that should be applied to the phone as well. And so I took that concept and developed what we have today, which is our MVP, which does just that, gives people the ability to document their use so that, over time, as they experiment with these different products, they will find the right solution for them. And I think the ancillary side is a great place because, Rebecca spoke to it very, very intelligently that, a lot of people, when they get into cannabis, they want to do a grow or they want to do a dispensary, but that's really not their skill set. And so mine has always been in programming and business development. So I just applied that to this industry.
And that's smart. And I love that because, again, I've been preaching about it. You don't have to do something different in order to get into the cannabis industry. You can do what you're already good at. And Otha, you have used those, both of your tech and your business development skills to create this amazing platform. So just staying on that topic for a little bit, when it comes to business development, how did you get, I just saw a picture of Curaleaf endorsing some tetragram swag. So how did you get your product or your app to be used by dispensaries? What was that process like for you?
So once we launched Tetragram on July 10th, I mean, to date, it's only been, 10 months and we're already in over 100 dispensaries throughout the country. So yeah, it's really been blowing up. I appreciate you. And so, the approach was simple. I basically got all my marketing material together, threw all of it in my car, t-shirts, hats, marketing, flyers, stuff like that. And just went to these dispensaries and started talking to the dispensary staff who, are on the front lines talking to the customer every day. So, of course, I wanted to form those alliances with them and, of course, with the managers. And, I will say that, and I've heard this on other sessions that have been going on throughout the day, is that your network has been key to me. I find people on LinkedIn. I mean, I pretty much wear LinkedIn out sometimes, but it's really been key to me establishing and growing relationships. And so, the land, a partnership with Curaleaf and GTI and some of these other large MSOs. It's taken time, over the course of like 3-4 months, but just continue to chip away and find other people who are connected to these industries, these companies, has really been beneficial for me.
I completely echo what you said. LinkedIn and Clubhouse, I have worn the crap out of 100%. But I love that you just kind of took that leap. You just went into dispensaries and started kind of pitching your product. Before we jump over to Rebecca to answer the same question, did you get any rejections from talking to dispensaries? What was that like?
So that's a great question. So I really didn't get rejection. I more so got like brushed off in the sense of we can't do anything at the retail level. You have to go up through the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Because, all these dispensaries are always recommending and providing to some patients free of charge a paperback journal. So, they understand the importance of our application. But there was a little bit of a hurdle in the sense that the people that you meet on at the retail level aren't the ones you are necessarily going to make those decisions. So that's where you really have to just again use your network and LinkedIn, Clubhouse, and so forth to find those key decision makers.
100%. And what I found too is even if you build relationships with the folks that don't make those decisions, they can vouch for you, because a lot of times the people that do make those decisions will ask their staff and their team, hey, what do you guys think about this? So I love that you got that FaceTime with those folks in the dispensaries.
Yeah, I will say I think that's been really key too, because sometimes, management isn't around. So you just talk to anyone who's in a dispensary so that once they see the value in it, they'll start speaking about it internally, and then that makes that next call, that next visit so much more easier, so much easier.
100%, I agree. Thanks, Otha. So now, Rebecca, for you, same question, but a little bit different when it comes to the product. So how did you get your cannabis product into your dispensaries? Because you just had a new adult strain hit shelves. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question. Really relationships. We have some bigger launches coming in just 2 short weeks. I'm very excited to announce that we're in even more chains across Michigan, not only in the Metro Detroit area. So yeah, and to be honest, kind of what Otha said is at first is brushing off. At first is like, oh, your little brand, whatever. But one is building momentum along your community, your followers, people that actually believe in you, and having them be brand ambassadors. And so then these retailers start hearing about what Collexium, what I never heard of this before. Let me look and see who these women are. Damn, they Black women grown. I ain't never seen this before. And we want something different. That's usually how it's been happening, is we building momentum on our own and saying, okay, if you don't want to mess with us in the beginning because we're too quote unquote small, we're not cookies and all of that, we'll build our own momentum. We'll go get in the newspaper by ourselves. We'll go fix the community by ourselves. You'll come back. And that's exactly what's been going on. Dang, I've been seeing y'all been doing a lot of great work in the community. I was wondering, could you put your products on my shelves? Oh, for real. So that's exactly how it, don't take the rejection in the beginning as disheartening. I take it as motivation. Like, I know we are great, and I'm going to make you see that we are great. And call me again in a couple of months. And that's exactly what has happened. So it's been creating that brand loyalty amongst our consumers, but then also producing quality products. So then when we go to new retailers, pitching our story, pitching our products, they like, well, let me see it. And as soon as we pull it out, they like, yep, let's get a couple pounds of this. Let's get, so it's also being able to back it up. Your pitch can be beautiful and wonderful, but it's also, you have to back it up. Your product has to be backed up. Whatever that is, you got an app, you got a merch line, or you got some flour. You have to be able to back it up with your quality. And that's been my experience. Getting in the door is one thing, but staying in the door and getting reorders is a whole nother thing.
Ooh, great point. That's a perfect segue to my next question for Celia.
There you go.
But yeah, see, you're reading my questions here, aren't you? But I just wanted to point out, yeah, so Rebecca and Otha do such a great job with rallying interest and investment in their stories. People probably think I work for Collexium and Tetragram part-time because I'm always repping their product because I'm invested and I want to be a part of their journey. So I think that is a huge component. Get your community excited about what you do. And you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers. The community that you do have, get them excited, get them to care about what you're doing, and they will ride for you. So great point, Rebecca. Thank you. So Celia, I wanted to direct that question, my next question, to you. So what would you say is the difference between companies that you have decided to fund versus ones that you've decided to pass on? What was it that made you eventually take that step and decide to fund them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I wish there was sort of one element, but really
Can you
it's
still
a
hear us, Celia?
I can. Can you?
Okay. We will come back to you, no problem. So I will actually redirect that question to Rebecca and Otha here. So in terms of capital, what has that experience been for you? I'll start with you, Rebecca. Have you sought out capital, or when do you think, rather, let's ask that question. When do you think it makes sense for entrepreneurs to pursue raising capital?
That's a great question. It's definitely a different story if you're plant touching versus non-plant touching. The cannabis space, especially if you're trying to get into the licensing side, is very expensive. So you're probably going to have to raise money from somebody, some institution, somewhere. So our strategy has always been to own as much equity as possible. I never wanted to become a black face. I mean, to be honest, I never wanted that to happen. I always also wanted to control the operation. So the majority and we are fully funded. I'm so excited to announce I'm not raising no more money. We are fully funded, and I'm just like ecstatic about it. And another thing is that LaToya and I still own over 90% of Collexium, and we had a lot of ambitious offers for crazy amounts of equity. But the thing about it that I always encourage people to understand is know your valuation, be able to back it up, and be immovable. Of course, be able to negotiate a little bit. Don't be such a hard ass where you turn people off, but stand on your stance. If you say, hey, I'm not giving up more than 30% of my company or whatever the number is, stay on that stance, but be creative on how you get there. So Cree, back to your question, we were creative into how we got there. Even though I denied a lot of equity plays, I'm interested in some loans though. I own this real estate. I'm interested in doing something with real estate financing. I have to buy this expensive ass processing equipment, so I'm interested in some equipment financing. So it's also being creative as well. That's what I got for you guys.
I love that. Thank you, Rebecca. And that's a really interesting point. And Celia, I'd love to hear you weigh in on that too, when it comes to maintaining equity versus taking investments. So let's touch on that for a little bit, Celia. Yeah, we would love you can answer kind of a two-part question here. What would you say is the primary difference between companies that you've decided to fund versus ones that you've decided to pass on?
Yeah. So I actually think that's a bit of those questions go together. I think, I wish there was sort of one thing that I could point to and say, this is why we fund or not fund. It's really a collection of things, and it's very much dependent upon the stage. So we're investing in what we call post-seed stage companies. So, not a concept, not a huge business yet, really taking on capital to take that next sort of level up. And when we're talking about that stage of company, it's the team. The team is going to be a huge part of what we're looking at, really trying to understand who these people are, what their vision is, what their capabilities are. Because when you get in early as an investor, you really are investing in the people and that they're going to be able to execute on a vision, have a vision, and then execute on that vision. So I'd say team's a big part of it, but of course, like we're also looking at the market, the size of the market, the potential for growth and sort of total valuation that we think a company can achieve. And then we're a very returns oriented organization. So we're like backing that out and saying like, okay, what does that look like for our returns? And so, every investor is different and every approach is a little bit different. As a VC, like we're very analytical in sort of putting numbers in, and they kind of have to make sense. And then if the numbers sort of make sense, then we're really looking at team and drilling in on the people and making sure we sort of believe in and are aligned with the people, and that they understand their market, right? So I think that's like the answer to the first question. And then the second question, about sort of maintaining equity and thinking about that, I would say I would actually just encourage people to really understand what it means to take on equity. You are aligning yourself with a partner with the goal of building a company that at some point returns value to those investors. Like that is sort of the point of sort of traditional venture capital investing. And we could argue about whether or not that, it makes sense in today's world, or if there's room for different kinds of investing. And I would argue that there are, but when you're talking about sort of straight traditional venture capital, that's what we're looking at. And I think not all businesses need to take on capital. Not all businesses need to take on equity. Or what Rebecca was saying about financing and like getting the capital that she needed to get going because she knew she could get to a place where the business was going to be able to fund itself. That's a strategy, right? Like that is understanding what your long-term vision looks like. So I think that, understanding what it means to take on equity and where that puts your business versus I'm going to do this myself, I'm going to bootstrap it, I'm going to pull on the, get the lending and the sort of financing that I need. And I know we're looking at Michigan. Michigan's really friendly from a sort of financing perspective in terms of all the markets out there. And so that's awesome, and I think that's a good option too. So sorry, that was my long-winded answer.
No, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. And I wanted to ask you too, so I hear this, and this might be an obvious question, but a lot of investors say the team is one of the most important factors in the decision to invest. So can you speak a little bit to why that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on stage. Like if we're talking about a company that's making, $5 to $10 million a year in revenue, team's not as important. It's like the business is important, but in an early part of the company, like you can have the best idea in the world. You can do something that no one has ever even thought of, but if you don't have the people who can execute on that vision and understand the steps to get there, like you have nothing. It's 10% idea, 90% execution. And so when we're looking at team, we're asking the question, have these people done this before? Do they have the right skills? Do they know where they're weak? And are they filling those holes, right? That's like more specifically what we're thinking about when we look at team. But yeah, it's important. You got to be able to execute. You can't do that if you don't have the right people in place.
Absolutely. And it's something that I've, as a founder, I used to be very, very tight-lipped about my ideas and not wanting to tell anyone until I realized, of course, still have some privacy with your new ideas, but someone could hear your ideas, but if they can't execute, it doesn't matter. Like you said, if you don't have a team, if you don't have the execution, then you really have nothing.
Yeah, vision's important, but getting it done is what's going to get you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for my next question, that's kind of a nice segue as well. So Otha, I want to pose this first question to you here, and then we do have to wrap up shortly. The time goes by so fast. But could you talk to your team and how you met the founding members of Tetragram?
Whew, that was a process. So, I came up with the idea, so I was the visionary behind it. And I knew I had enough technical ability to do something, but not everything that was needed in order to build out the application. So it was very important for me as I looked for, two people are key to any tech company, but more definitely an app company. One is a UX designer, someone who can design the flow and the feel of the application. And then you'll need someone who could be the architect that can just build the bones of it that the UX lays upon. And so that process took me about 2 years. And the reason being is because you meet a lot of people, they show a lot of interest, but at the end of the day, you need people who are going to be just as passionate and willing to get their hands dirty and put it all on the line. You know, I left a very lucrative job to start this business, so I put all my chips on the line with this company. And I was looking for partners that were equally willing to do so. And then more importantly, just to add icing on the cake, I was looking for partners that actually were patients or just a cannabis consumer. Because again, having that insight as a patient or a cannabis or CBD consumer helps drive the visionary aspect of the company. And also, again, it relates to the passion associated with it. So after numerous interviews, some people sounded good and we start off, and then they'd be hot and heavy, and then they would die off. And that happens sometimes. And that's when you see, okay, they're not as passionate as they initially let on. So it took time, but through multiple interviews, I landed my now business partners that I'm extremely grateful for. But I think the key to it all is just finding people who are passionate just as well as you are about the project.
100% agree. And just a super quick follow-up question to that, Otha. Would you say, because I've dealt with the same thing where people start off really passionate and excited and they kind of trickle off, would you say there were any red flags that you would that you took note of and folks that maybe tended to fizzle out halfway through?
Yeah, I mean, when you have interviews with people, sometimes they give you these telltale signs, these red flags. And sometimes, I think the biggest one that I started to see a real correlation with people who started off a little hot and heavy, then died off, was just that in the initial interview, they were a little scatterbrained. I mean, it seemed, and then you look at their past history and you'd be like, okay, so tell me about your previous job history. And if you see them jumping jobs like every year or 2 years, it's like, okay, they really can't stay committed to something. So that was the one red flag that just seemed to be constant with the ones that didn't pan out.
Very interesting. Okay. Thank you for that. And Rebecca, how about you? Tell us about you and LaToya and how you guys met and decided to work together on Calixium.
Yes. It was definitely a journey. And I think I've been an entrepreneur even before cannabis, and I had a partnership that ended terribly. And even though at the time it was disheartening, it taught me a lot of wisdom, and it taught me a lot of things to identify that I don't want in a partner, the things that I probably need. And when I first met LaToya, 4 different people tried to introduce me to her in some different type of way. And I finally met her. I'm like, oh yeah, these 4 people have been trying to get me to meet you. And we met and we had a lot of complementary skills. I think that's something that I would recommend if you're in some type of partnership, some type of is have skills that are complementary. So my skills and what I'm good at, I'm very right brain, she's very left, and we just do this, and I think a lot of times leaders, co-founders, executives, they always clash because everybody's not grooving in their own lane. I think everybody should have their own lane and be the leader of their own lane. And then y'all just meet up and share ideas. And I respect you because I know this is what you do. So if you suggest this from, I don't know, a cultivation standpoint or an accounting standpoint, whatever your specialty is, I respect your decision because you're that subject matter expert. And I think that's also a tip of how you can be a great leader when you start to have employees and other coworkers and other executives, is giving them the autonomy to do their job and give them the respect of, you're the subject matter expert, you're the engineer. Okay, what do you think we should do about this problem? And so that's kind of how we met. And that's also how we have built our very successful, beautiful team, is giving people the autonomy to be themselves and to do their roles, not being micromanagers, and just giving people the space. Sometimes you just need the space to do your job. You don't need somebody hovering over you all day.
100%. Find someone who compliments you. Find someone who fills the gaps maybe that you have, or the skills or the knowledge that you may not have. Find someone who compliments you. And then last question for Celia before we wrap up here. Speaking of meeting folks, how do you typically like to go about meeting founders that you are interested in hearing them pitch for you?
Honestly, the best founders we find are usually through referrals. So there's a lot of coming out and trying to go to stuff and meeting people and then getting connected that way. I think that seems to be one of the best ways to do it. Just like be there, go to the places, be there, meet people, and sort of understand who I'll call them like the nodes are, like there's always people, I think, in each market are sort of connected and know what's going on. And that's a great way to kind of get connected with people. We have like a form on our website too. So we do get some inbound stuff from folks who just kind of reach out and hear about, what our interests are and what we're investing in, and sort of submit that way. So yeah, I mean, I get it all kinds of ways. LinkedIn, people send me all kinds of stuff.
I'm sure. I was listening to a podcast one time, an investor, and he said he got something like 100 pitches a day or something absolutely insane. So I feel for you. But
cool. You get a really good sense of sort of where it's interesting to see like where the industry is going. There'll be like tons of hemp brands, and then it'll be like tons of POS tech systems. And so it's really interesting. It actually shows a lot of like patterns on the industry. It's kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. And speaking of events, so just a shout out CannaCon, which is happening here in Detroit at the end of this month. I believe it's the 25th through 26th. I will be at CannaCon. I think a couple of us on the panel will be there as well. So definitely check that out. It'll be great to make some connections. And with that, if we could end on how folks can get in contact with you. Cecilia, we will start with you. How can folks get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I'll drop a link to my LinkedIn. I see Rebecca and Otha did that already, so I'll drop that. That's a great way to get in touch with me. I'm hoping to be in Detroit for CannaCon too, so let me know. I'd love to meet you while I'm there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Celia. And Otha, how about you? How can we get in contact with you?
LinkedIn is the best way to get in contact with me, or you can DM me through Instagram as well at the touCanna app. So please follow us as well.
And how do we download touCanna?
So you can download touCanna from touCannaApp.com, or you could just simply go to Apple or the Google Play Store and look for the touCanna app, and you could download it there as well. Completely free and HIPAA compliant.
Awesome. And I have touCanna on my phone, and I definitely use it when I am shopping for new products. So definitely download the touCanna app. It is completely free and amazing. And last but not least, Rebecca, how can we get in contact with you?
Hi guys, thanks for having me today. I dropped my LinkedIn URL in the chat. You can connect with me directly there. Please follow our brand on Instagram. We post an amazing updates, events, all type of stuff. Instagram at Collexium_Detroit. And if you have any questions or anything, connect with us on our website, Collexium.com.
Awesome. And then for the folks who are in Michigan, Rebecca, where can we find your newly released adult strains?
So I can't really say that yet. That's why you need to follow us on Instagram. The announcements are coming this week. We have 4 new strains coming up.
Woo! And myself and my co-founder have tried all of the strains that she's released thus far. Good stuff, guys. So definitely when she makes that announcement, be sure to go out and get those. And let's head over to the banking panel, which is happening right now, being moderated by my co-founder, Louie. So I will see you guys over there. Thank you, Celia, Otha, and Rebecca, so much for being here. It was such an amazing conversation, and enjoy the rest of the career fair.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye, guys.